Hello everyone, I am Aurélien Brel from Moody Technologies, and today I will show you a bit the configuration of Woody in2it, especially the profiles configuration, which is the heart of the system. The configuration is really similar for all the Woody softwares. So Woody in2it configuration is really close to Woody Social, Woody Ingest, or Woody Outgest configuration. Let's go to the configuration area of the software. Here we have the Profiles tab where we can list and configure all the ingest profiles. You can use various ingest profiles for various use cases. The usual reason to use different ingest profiles is because you have different departments like news, sports, magazines, or different destinations. Maybe you have an Avid MAM, but you have also another media asset management system, or you also want to send MP4 files via FTP. So for this reason, you can create various profiles to fit all your needs. The number of profiles is not limited by the license, so you can create as many profiles as you need. And as we will see later, you can filter the profiles per user and user group. So you can define who in your organization will be able to use which profile. Let's go to the news profile first. So in the profile, the first thing you have to set is the mode. The mode is the target family, if I can say like this. So it's generally the target environment that you want to address. We have here Avid Interplay for Avid PAM environment. We have Avid Media Files plus AAF for Avid environment without interplay. We have AV file plus metadata. This is a generic mode where you can create a MXF file or MP4 file plus a sidecar metadata file. So this is allowing integration with many different media asset management systems. We have a specific integration with the Cantemo Portal MAM. You have a mode multi-target to combine several targets in one unique profile. For example, if you want to send to system main and system backup, or system A and system B, or FTP and SMB, you can combine different profiles, and from one user action, the ingest will be done in both systems. This is also important to ingest proxy and high-res at the same time. And finally, we have a backup mode, which exists only in Woody in2it to back up the camera cards on specific storage locations. So if you don't want to transcode anything, but you want to first do just a pure backup of the original card, you can use this mode. Of course, you can combine this backup with an ingest to a production asset management system or to a central storage system connected to the editing software. Depending on the mode you choose, the options in the profile will change a little bit, but it's generally the same. Here, the first part that we will see is the format part. So this is here that you will define what is the target format for the clips that will be processed by this profile. And it's not only one target format. It can be a more or less complex rules based on the source and target format. So here I have a very basic rule for now, which says that any SD or HD video content will be transcoded or rewrapped to AVC Intra 100. I've decided in this profile not to process the photos and not to process the audio. What I can do for the photos is that I can decide also to convert them to video, and in this case I can decide what is the duration of this video. For the audio files, we can create audio clips as output or black video with audio. But we can add additional conditions as well. So now if we don't want to work only with AVC Intra 100, but we also allow, for example, the AVC Intra 50, we can say in this case that if the source is already AVC Intra 50, it will not be transcoded, it will be only rewrapped. So you can add conditions like this and allow multiple target formats in your environment. Then we have options to resize the non-16 by 9 sources. We detect automatically the aspect ratio of the source, which is very useful, especially for smartphone footage, iPhone footage, or also files coming from the web. And we can decide how we want to resize these sources to not stretch, in this case, the original aspect ratio. You can decide also what you want to do with audio and how many audio tracks you want. So you can decide that you want a minimum number of audio tracks, a maximum number of audio tracks, or a fixed number of audio tracks, or just keep as it's on the source. Um, then we have additional options. I will not go through all of them, but one is interesting here is the merge clips. So in this case, you will ask Woody in2it to merge all the clips together and to create only one clip as output instead of many. In this case, you can decide if you want to keep the manual ordering done in the user interface or if you want to force to order the clips by creation date. What we also have is the source timecode start generation. So we can preserve, of course, the source timecode on the target clip, but some sources don't have timecode. For example, the GoPro footage, there is no timecode on it, which can be a problem for post-production. In this case, you can decide to create the timecode from creation date or to start the first clip with a timecode at 0 and then increment the timecode for the following clips. We can reject the very short clips if we want. We can force the target timecode to a specific value, and we can also burn in a logo during the processing. Then we have the delivery part. So the delivery part is really depending on the target system here. For Navid mode, we have to define where the Avid media files will go and what is the path in the database where we want to send the assets, and we have the information to access the database here. But if we switch now the mode to Avid AV file plus metadata, here we can define what kind of delivery we want: SMB, FTP, Aspera, File Catalyst, also cloud storage. So all these modes are very useful for remote ingest use cases. We have a lot of remote ingest use cases with people using Woody in2it on the field, on laptops, or using Woody in2it in a local office of a broadcaster and sending content back to the main office. So for this use case, using the transfer acceleration technology or leveraging the cloud storage is very interesting to have very good performances. In this case of the AV file plus metadata mode, the media part doesn't really change, but the metadata part, you can define if you want a sidecar metadata file and what is the format of this sidecar. And we can customize this content with a XSL transformation, so we can really fit with the expectations of the target system. For example, this is what we use to integrate with Dalet Galaxy system. We know very well the XML format that Dalet expects, and we have an XSL transformation to convert the Woody metadata scheme to the Dalet metadata scheme and make sure it will fit with the target system. As we are speaking about metadata, this is the next part. So here, for the metadata, you can define which metadata will be asked to the user in the user interface. So here it's in Woody in2it, but it's exactly the same in Woody Social or in Share-it. You can ask the user to give a minimum information before the ingest, and you can make sure that they will do it, otherwise the ingest will not start. So to create this custom metadata, you can just add one here. So here we can see that we have a story and a show metadata, but now if I want to add a journalist metadata, I can do it as well. I can decide which type of metadata it will be: text metadata, list values, external list populated by an external system, interplay selector to browse the interplay database directly in my user interface, or SMB selector to browse the target storage, and also static metadata if you want to have always the same for this field. So now I will create a list of journalists and I will edit it. Thomas, Laura, John. Okay, and I can decide if the users will see this metadata field in the user interface, and super important, if it's mandatory or not. So if I make it mandatory, ingest will not happen until this metadata is filled. If I save my profile like this and I go back to my user interface, I can see that now in my news profile, I have a journalist metadata, and you can see here that it's in red, meaning that if I don't set a value here, I cannot start the ingest because the metadata is missing. So back in the profile, we can use this metadata in various ways. The first way is to rename the clips dynamically. So you can rename the clips appending, for example, the story name to the source name to make all names clear and understandable in the target system. Or you can just use the story and renumber the clips with incremental digits like 01, 02, 03, and so on. The second thing you can do with this metadata is that you can create subfolders dynamically in the target system. So you can decide to organize the content properly in your database or on your storage. For example, creating a folder per day, so for each ingest date, and then a folder per show. So all the assets, all the files will be properly organized on your target storage. If I come back to the Avid interplay mode, we will see that we have an additional setting here in this naming and grouping rules. This is the shortlist creation and the tape name customization. So the shortlist creation is a way to create a sequence automatically containing all the clips in the Avid system, and you can choose how you want to name it. The tape name is a metadata in the Avid world that is used for post-production to relink high-res and low-res content, and you can build custom tape name also using and combining the various metadata that we have. So all these rules make all the content clearly identified in the target MAM or on the target storage. So it will save the time of the editors and journalists who will search for the content, but it will also save time of the media manager that will organize the life of the content, because it knows that this clip 00123 is related to this story or to this show, and it's not just a file with a name and no additional information. The next part of the profile is the notifications area. So here you can configure various notifications at the end of the process. We can define if these notifications will happen on success or on error, and we can have different ways to notify. The first one is the email sent to a group of users that you define here with the summary of the metadata and the status success or failure. We can also create a file. So this is useful if you want to create an additional XML file or text file that you want to put somewhere to indicate what has been ingested. And the last one is to integrate with third-party systems. So it's an HTTP call that you can send to a third-party system to notify it that the ingest was done, and you can customize the content of this notification again through XSL transformation. So this is what we use, for example, to integrate with Telestream Vantage as workflow engine and external transcoder. At the end of the process, we can send an HTTP request to Vantage, or we can do it to Aspera Orchestrator, which is another workflow engine, or any MAM, PAM workflow engine that needs to be notified. The last part of the profile in in2it is the automatic card backup. I mentioned before that you can have a backup mode that will do only a backup of the original card. Here with the automatic cards backup, we are in a standard ingest profile, so we will transcode or rewrap the content and deliver it to the storage or to the MAM. But we also want to do a backup of the card. It will happen here after the ingest, and it will require no additional action from the user side. So it will be really transparent for the users, and you can define where this backup will go, for example, on server share or even locally on the ingest workstation. If you want to perform a checksum, and if you want to create also subfolders to organize the backup per day or per show or per what you want. So you can also have a clear organization of your backup cards. So as you can see, we have a lot of options here in these profiles. All the features for media and metadata processing are set here. But from the user perspective, it's really simple. It's about choosing the profile, setting the mandatory metadata, and starting the ingest. And it's really what we want to keep these separated and keep all the complex stuff for transcoding and so on here in the profiles, and keeping the minimum of questions and technical questions in the user interface. Now I will show you the users management. So I mentioned before that we can have a users management. Here we can see that we have two users, one user named administrator and one which exists by default, and one user named avid ingest. So right now, this administrator has permission of admin and avid ingest has permission of user, and they have access to all the profiles. Now what I can do is that I can create a profile, Avid only, for example, that has only access to the news profile. Here you can select which profile you will allow for this user. And I can say that the Avid ingest user will belong to the Avid only group. So this is a way to limit what a user can do in Woody in2it, and to segment the usage of Woody in2it across different departments or different kind of users, and to make sure that they will not choose the wrong profile, so that the media will not go to the wrong destination. You can also create additional permissions if you want to give access to the profiles only, for example, and to the monitoring, but not to the rest of the software. You can create additional permissions here. Here in the connections tab, you can see who is currently connected. This is for the server deployment of Woody in2it or for Woody Social. You can see who is connected, from which IP address, with which login, and you can force the logout. And we have also the integration with Active Directory, which is possible, so you can import user groups from your Active Directory and use these users in Woody in2it. And the authentication provider is the Active Directory, so you don't need to maintain twice the user and password lists. A quick look at the other tabs of the configuration. The manager tab is where you can see if everything is running well and where you can stop and start the Woody components. The setup tab contains the general information of the software. So an important one is the maximum number of ingest streams that you want to run on this machine. Here it's 4 simultaneous ingest streams. You are not limited by the license. You can go up to 16 for now. But usually, depending on the hardware, the appropriate number is between 4 and 8. If you have a very powerful server, of course, you can go upper. We have the log level here. We have the filtering for files extension that are accepted or not. And we have various options about the behavior of the user interface. So these options are a bit different in Woody in2it than they are in Woody Social or the other software, because it depends on the use case. We have also special characters management if you want to avoid certain characters to be used. And the rest is more maintenance options. Here you can generate a log report that you send to us, so it makes the troubleshooting easier. We have seen the users tab, the profiles tab. The monitoring tab is where you can see the current and past ingest. Right now, unfortunately, I have nothing, but it's here that you can have a technical monitoring of the ingest jobs, and the logs is where you can access the log files and read them. So here we have seen all the configuration of Woody in2it. It's really similar to what you have in the other Woody products. And if you have any questions, just contact me, and we will be happy to help you with this configuration. Thank you very much.